we can't think change ultimately. We can't, if we thought the problem and we're thinking about it, we can't just think about it and it will change. We have to come from a different place. And the breath takes us into the body. So as the prefrontal cortex quietens, we start to experience what I refer to as the right side of the brain. It's more creative. It's there's more clarity because there's less questioning. There's less trying to rationalize, trying to work anything out. It's just what I referred to before as this knowing. And we start to hear that in a way that we don't normally hear it because we're never quietening ourselves to that degree. So now we have this connection with just what is true. And so with the guidance that I take people on, it's really trying to utilize that from this open state, from this place of lack of judgment. If we poke around there, what can we find? What can we uncover? What can we bring in? What can we show to the people around them that is true for them? For the people in the experience is true for them. And so really the breath is just a tool. The breath is just giving us the physiological change to quieten the parts of us that we want to quieten, open ourselves up. And it's like now this is going to sound, it's the wrong word, but we're impressionable, if you like. We're open to be led into somewhere. So that's where it's the role of the breathwork practitioner. For me, where can I guide you?
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm excited and honored to be joined by Ben Bidwell. Let me tell you about Ben, this incredible man and what he's been up to. Ben's a human potential coach and a breathwork practitioner. He helps people create better relationships and live more fulfilling lives with more purposeful existences. He spent over 10 years studying key human behavioral education, including NLP, life coaching, logotherapy, meditation, breathwork, and trauma, and that list is extensive. He has a custom-built program called the Wealth to Fulfillment Blueprint, and that's an introspective experience that ensures that his clients and the people who work with him have more purpose and joy and fulfillment in their life. His work has taken him into leading publications such as The Independent, Forbes, Grazia, Esquire, and Men's Health, as well as some of the most recognizable daytime shows, including Sky News, This Morning, Talk Radio, and Heart FM. His compassionate heart creates a uniquely safe space for introspection and allows for deep healing. I know this personally, and I can vouch for Ben because I experienced one of his workshops in Hay in England at Russell Brand's Community Festival, and I talked to him afterwards, and I was like, you got to come on my show, brother. So Ben, thank you so much for beaming in. It's an honor to have you, bro.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for all of that. And just looking forward to connecting with you, brother.
Absolutely, man. So what an incredible experience I had. And I do have a lot of experience doing this work, but I was really impressed by the way you spoke and you guided everyone through this awesome workshop that we had at Russell Brand's Community Festival. So it was such a delight to meet what I immediately recognized as a kindred spirit and someone who's on a similar journey to myself. So I was like, we got to talk, man. We got to talk.
I'm excited. Yeah. I remember seeing you. It's weird. It was a big room and there were so many people, but you were one of the people that I saw. And I remember you when we spoke at the end and I remember seeing your like you nodding as I was speaking. And I really, it's always beautiful to see that. You don't know how you're being received. So just that little nod of acceptance. I was like, yeah, okay, here's my man.
Feels
beautiful.
Good. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I loved your website and I love what it says. And I speak about this often on my podcast because it's also one of the reasons I started my channel and how I ended up on my journey. This notion, and it's true that we're not taught to live fulfilling lives, and how to live. What our potential is something that becomes lost because we live in such a material society geared towards, the successful corporate model, and which is, a very cutthroat kind of existence. And that's reflected in the world we're living in. But it's hard for people growing up, particularly men, who come into this existence and then find themselves kind of approaching our middle years and completely, dissatisfied with just about everything going on and wondering how we got here, and so finding this work is a remarkable opportunity for a lot of people. I would love for you to speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm with you with everything you just said, and I'm with you because I lived it. I'm 42 today, but for the first 30 years of my life,
Hey, happy birthday, brother! Happy
well,
birthday.
not actually today, but as in that's my
see.
age now.
I got you.
I should have kept her. She was just claimed her, so thank you. But yeah, so for 30 years, it was just a tick boxing, a box ticking exercise where I was just, doing all the things that society showed me I should do right from the word go. From as young as I can remember, I was shown a path. This is how you're going to be, and I really clearly remember having that path in my mind. If I can just do these things, ultimately live that 2.4 children, get the job, wife, kids, maybe a dog, house. If I can just do that, bingo, like I've smashed it. And no one would have been able to convince me otherwise all the way through until I was doing it. Not the wife and the kids, but so much else. And all I can remember hearing when I was in that space was just like, this isn't it. There's something more. Like there's something missing. And for a long time, I'm not afraid or ashamed to say that I thought that I was a healthy, ambitious man, and I thought I needed hotter women, I needed better parties, I needed more money. And the sign of my unrest within was just a sign of my ambition. I wasn't happy like those losers who were happy with having not much. I was like, yeah, no, I'm a healthy, ambitious man. Until it reached a point where I discovered, within, and by accident, really. But I suddenly realized that everything I was looking for lived within me. And I know that's a cliche, but it's true.
Well, but the biggest realization anyone can come to in this life, particularly in the settings that we're kind of put into, right? It's not exactly the most conducive environment to realize the truth about what we're doing here. So, you're actually, you were on the same path as so many, and I can relate in so many ways. You had an experience that kind of that jarred you. I know that you were like many of us who have gone down this path. You were in one therapy or another, and then something kind of began to awaken and allowed you to hear that voice that had been saying, "This isn't it," but in a different way. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I just remember sitting around in in an office, and I was working with beautiful people. I really enjoyed it. As far as a corporate opportunity it was like I was like, this is great. I really enjoy the people I'm working with. I'm getting paid well. It's a nice part of town. This is pretty cool. But is this how I want to live my life? And I remember raising that with the people around me, just thinking are you feeling this too? Is this we remember Friday afternoons when things used to quieten, we have this little conversation about it. Maybe there was just something extra in me. I felt it a little more deeply. I don't know, but it drove me to just quit. Led to a point when the crash happened in 2008, 2010, and 2010 I was getting paid much less than I was before, and I was like, the only reason I'm in this job is because it's paying me well. And now it's not even doing that. Now is actually my chance to make an escape, because I'm 28, and if I do this for many more years, I'm in the trap. I'll be just really hard to escape from this. I have the wife, the kids will want school fees, and I'll need the money, and where else is my expertise? I'm trapped, right? And hard to get out of. So I'm really glad and fortunate that at that point when the crash happened, and I could look at my finances and say, hey, I'm walking away from a lot less here than I was before. So I'm out with no plan.
But something got you to that point. I know you were struggling with relationships, and I thought I remembered reading about an experience you had where I think I think maybe was with relationships that you were having trouble, and there was a certain therapist that kind of, a lot can be uncovered in the right kind of therapy setting. about what has happened to us, and kind of how we got stuck where we are. And I
Yeah.
thought I remember reading about an experience you had like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, like, cutting to the chase of it all, ultimately, I reached this point where I was 30 years old and I was fortunate. I'd been in some beautiful relationships with some beautiful women and it was great. But there was always this issue around sex. I was never fulfilled, never reaching a place where I could orgasm. And that would really limit my experience in the relationship. And reached a point at 30 where I was like, hey, I want to have a sexually fulfilling relationship. I want to have kids. Like, I need to be open to changing this now. And it kind of got me a few lad points along the way. In my 20s, there was kind of pats on the back. Like, I got the opposite problem,
Yeah.
was the general thing that I heard. There was some lad points to it. So it kind of allowed it to work for me until that point. And then, and then I reached the end and it was like, hey, I want to look at this. And weirdly, I don't know what I would have done about it. But I lived with a professional sportsman and he was having an injury problem and he started working with a hypnotherapist to help him mentally get over this injury.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I got to this point where I was like pretty crazy that, he's doing that work, but I wonder if I've got an injury in a similar way. And I wonder if I can work on my thing like that. So I remember that my first kind of encroaching on vulnerability was sitting down with this hypnotherapist and having this conversation to sort of say, like, a bit of a quirky one here. Don't know if you'll be expecting this, but this is my situation. Do you think you might be able to help? And you know what? Thank God she didn't say to me, because she would have been able to see it. Knowing what I know now, she would have looked at me and she'd have been like, you've numbed yourself.
Yeah.
You're not being authentic. You're not liberated. You're not free in your expression. You're trapped. You're enclosed. You're not being the man you were born to be. She didn't say any of that, thank God. She was just like, yeah, I can help. And I honestly just thought she was going to teach me sex tricks and I was going to become some kind of guru and I'd get more lab points, better women, all this thing. And I was like, sign me up. This is amazing.
Yeah. She was probably cute to boot. You were like, this is going to be great.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. I was like, win, win, win. This is awesome. Yeah. So I completely naively went on this journey. And I remember, like, a couple of months in, I sent my mum some flowers and let my mama know I love her. Something that I really struggled to do, just purely in my perception of as a man. Like, who does that? Opens up to their mum. Even though I loved her so deeply, I've always had a special relationship with her. But I was scared of judgment, and that wasn't the man that I conditioned myself to believe I should be. So I was doing these little things, and although it felt really uncomfortable to a part of me, this voice that was judging me, there was also a part of me that was really glad that I'd expressed that to my mum and that she knew the truth of what I felt. And if I was to shorten my story, I'd say for the next 12 years, my journey has been about embracing that part of me, that same part that is like cringe. You're expressing that truth to your mum. That's been my journey. It's like, okay, let's lean into that. Let's choose that. Not the other voice that's like, who are you, you loser, judging, making me wrong, telling me who I should be. But just listening to the truth. No shoulds, anything else, but that's me. And for the next 12 years, my journey's been about choosing those things, leaning into that part of me. And
wow.
Yeah.
It's a heart-opening journey you went on, my friend. And we have that in common. I can see why I gravitated towards you after hearing you speak. And, it's very clear to me, learning about your experience. I was in a similar situation and found myself, also seeking help, all kinds of help. And sometimes, the things that made me like, okay, this looks great. She's a cute therapist anyway, let me check this out. And then thankfully having some wonderful angels, just show up in my life, be there when I was, needing them. And realizing that this journey, especially as a man, of opening your heart, and rediscovering your vulnerability, it is the most liberating and, important journey that you can go on. You just never realize how much joy you're missing until you can crack this thing open. And there's a lot of reasons why guys keep it sealed shut, and conditioning, but that's amazing that and thank you for sharing that. I know it's probably not always that much fun to share because of the intimate nature of the reason you sought this hypnotherapist. But I think it's good for people to hear. And then I'm sure that you've worked it out now either way. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Do you know what? If you don't mind me responding to that briefly, I will, because I think it's important,
Please.
actually. Thank you. The first time I shared that, I was doing something called Landmark Forum that you might have come across. And in fact, I didn't. I was at Landmark Forum, and they were inviting people to come and share and express. And I knew that was my truth. I knew that was just what was within me. But I just could not speak about it. I couldn't get in front of people. I was so scared of like, what is this guy talking about? What's he saying? Like all these stories. I just could not bring myself to say it. And eventually, obviously, I did at some point. And then, I felt the kind of lightness of actually, that's my truth and it's been accepted. Yeah. And now it's just, for me, it's like, it's like saying 2 + 2 is 4. It's just my truth. And I've come to a place where I guess, the truth will set you free is what comes to me now. And I don't want to not live my truth. And the pain of hiding anything away, compared to however awkward or like judgmental I am around the truth of what's inside of me, I'll always choose the truth. I don't want to live with that pain of being trapped anymore.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, the people don't understand how, I mean, even I think with men, it goes under it's not as recognized that men also have this this need to be connected, and sex is a great part of that. I mean, I think people realize it, but they discount it. They just think that we're like dogs, and but really what we're seeking is connection. And so when your wires get crossed with conditioning and trauma when you're young, it often can lead to all different kinds of irregularities and dysfunction and difficulties in sexual relationships. And most guys, they just kind of go along with it and don't try to figure it out. But I think amazingly, sex is also a life-giving source. It can be absolutely divine. It can be used for so many, wonderful energy and life-giving, manifestation. And it's a resource that we have as human beings, I think, besides one of the most pleasurable things we can participate in. But a lot of that gets lost in translation, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that through this challenge that you had, that you were able to unearth just enough to put you on your path. It's like, I just find that amazing. I think that I'm a believer that our sexuality leads us, so because sex is directly connected to the soul. And I think because sex has such a dirty name in our society, the way that it's, taught, and people are taught all these things about it. They're taught to fear it. And it becomes like the forbidden fruit, all that jazz. But my point with that is, I've had so many experiences where I thought, okay, I wonder, or I thought I was up to no good. And really my intuition was leading me through my sexuality to, my wife, the woman I love, who bore my children, all kinds of experiences that are of that nature. I always feel like there's a connection there. And I rarely get a chance to comment on it. So I couldn't help myself.
Oh, that's beautiful, brother. Thank you. And, I hear you. I hear you. And sex is an ongoing journey for me. And I know I've still got so much work to do within, because I know there's so much more for me to explore there. And I think to have real meaningful sex beyond like dog sex, if you like, to go with that reference, there's so much vulnerability required. And that's not something a space most of us are willing to enter. So yeah, the work continues for me around that, and I'm just excited about what else I can uncover. And you know what? That's just touching on a broader subject for me. I love to kind of bracket this as uncovering more potential, because I think so many of us think of our limitations and think like we want to shy away. When if we just look at it, that God, all of us have got untapped potential, and there's more within us all. We just reframe it that way rather than like, I'm not very good at this. It's like, well, how much more fun can I have in my life when I step more into this potential that I know is within me that I'm just a bit blocked around? That's a really expansive way to not only see yourself, but to see your world. And I think so many of us men particularly are afraid or ashamed to work with someone because it highlights that we've got limitations.
Right.
And it's like, are you kidding yourself? Like, you think that you have stepped into your full potential in every capacity, when I think most of us, I read somewhere, the average person is operating, I don't know where they get this stat from, but operating at something like 18% of their full sexual capability.
Right.
It's like, what? Let's uncover that. Let's not see that 72% as a limitation of ours.
Right.
It's like, there's more. There's more. So
much more. And I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So it's I think some people are struck with the drive to discover more, to learn more, to get more out of something, that even if they've already experienced it, and I think the people who ask that question, and I love this question, is there more? Those are the people who really, they get the most profound experiences out of life. That's been my experience, and that's what I've learned from my teachers and mentors. Always is there more? Is there more to this experience? Because you know what? In this reality that we're living in, there's almost always more. There's almost always more, I think, with most things. So, and the challenge, Ben, of course, as you know, is, guys, you gotta be brave enough to bite the bullet and be honest about what's going on. So whether you're going to go talk to a man or a woman, there's that hurdle, which is a hurdle. And then you got to be honest, once you sit down, because the temptation is going to be to give them the 18% of the truth that you're used to giving people about this, and see if you can uncover what the solution from that. Whereas if you go up and you're honest, and of course I've had some experience with this, working with different people on different problems, you're afraid to be so vulnerable that you just tell them the truth, and then they're trying to help you based on 10% of the truth of the problem, and it takes a long time. And then you realize, oh my God, I can trust this person, and they're here to help me. Why don't I just be honest? Save time. So it's just for everyone who's listening, who may be in this situation. It's not an accident you're listening, and save yourself time. Be honest, and let the person help you. Yeah. But I understand that. I mean, for someone to get to where you were and to be closed off, I mean, usually there's a lot of trauma involved, if not, a childhood of conditioning that is, pretty machismo. And I mean, I guess you could say, so I wish you could say it's old fashioned, but the fact is that it's still pretty prominent in today's society. And it just leads to a lot of emotional constipation. And I would love for you to talk about how do you think you ended up, in that office, speaking to that therapist? I mean, have you, and not everyone has, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did you figure out where that kind of steel-hearted conditioning came from? And was it a challenge for you to work through it then?
Yeah. I think there's always more to uncover, but I think I've pieced together a lot on my journey that led me to the place I was at, and that was one. I guess the main one for me in terms of the numbing. I just looked around at the world, aged 5 onwards. In the 1980s, I looked around at what it was to be a man. In fact, no, there's a part to start before that led me to look around at who I needed to be a man, and that was the emptiness that I experienced within. if I'm really honest with you, I think this led, and this is not to blame anyone, but it's led from, I'm the youngest of 3 boys. My family, my brothers are 6 and 8 years older than me. My memory of sitting around the dinner table is just that whatever I was achieving, whatever I was talking about, my brothers had done it a long time ago, and they're on to something way more interesting and better now. And I just built up this story in my head that I was of low value. I wasn't of significance. My voice didn't really matter. And from that place, I was desperately looking around for validation. And what the world showed me, including my older brothers, if I'm honest with you, and actually this is the most challenge, the biggest challenge for me, is that my middle brother was my hero, particularly in terms of, he was great at the sports. The girls loved him. He was kind of, he was the man about town. And I was like, that's what I'm seeing. I look around the world, James Bond, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Rambo, like that's what I'm seeing. If I need to thrive as a man, that's what I'm seeing. And my brother was showing me that. And what I really learned, really interestingly, is that my middle brother was pretty horrible to me. All the way growing up, there were tears. And what I learned is that for me, and my childhood experience, was that I came in and stole some of his love, and this new sort of puppy of the family. And I got this, by the way, by looking at a photograph of me and my family, like surrounded by me. And we were playing a game, and it was like I was the center, and everyone was like around me, this new little boy, the new little toy that everyone wanted to play with. And I get this sense just from like really feeding into this and doing a lot of work. This came up for me at something called the Hoffman process. Looking at that photo and realizing that I'd stolen my middle brother's love. And within him became a mission to restore that balance and to push me down so that he could feel better again. And to hopefully reclaim that love that he was used to receiving. And so my hero really, not consciously, no blame, but really made me feel like a piece of shit, growing up. And that was a really hard balance, that the man I really wanted to become. And so from my place of like really not enough, real low value, looking around, it was like, okay, I got to go all in on this masculinity, this way to thrive. I got to try and become the Bond, the Terminator, the Rambo, whatever it is. So
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's another one. Yeah. That was the picture in the 80s, 90s, right?
My God, I know.
Yeah.
I'm about your age.
Right. There you go.
Plus 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. So right? And yeah. So I just went all in on that. And the truth is, Faust, like that was never me. And my mum was a nurse. And what I saw in her was so much beautiful sensitivity, so much kindness, so much love, like nourishment. And I loved that in her. And I definitely had that in me, in a world that told me I shouldn't. So I really had to bury and put on the mask, numb the emotions, numbed who I was, you can play it out from there. And I ticked all the boxes and got the validation. Went to the gym, put on my armor, got the girls, never lived true to me. And I was out of sync, out of alignment, numb, didn't like who I was because I wasn't being myself. It's a pretty hard world to live in when you add all those things into your way of being. Yeah.
It's very hard. And no amount of money, no amount of sex, no amount of partying, is going to leave you content with yourself. And that's what I think a lot of people, who are used to thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, don't understand. You can have a dream job. You could be making a lot of money, and a lot of people are going to want to celebrate that for you, especially since that's what they want for themselves. And they're going to look at you, the proudest my parents ever looked at me, Ben, was I was working for Hilton Hotels. I had put acting. Well, I didn't think I was putting it aside when I took this job, but they were like, no one can do this job, but if you can, you make a lot of money, like as much money as a doctor makes. And I was like, what the fuck is this job? You know what I mean? I'm like, they were like, it's an executive sales job, but it's not easy. Most people can't do it, but they'll let you try. I was like, I mean, I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, of course, the competitive nature in me was like, and they were like, oh, you'll still have time to act, because I was an actor for 20 years, but I needed the money. I didn't have a job. I was in New York City. You know, acting wasn't paying the bills. It usually doesn't for 98% of actors. But I got a job with Hilton Hotels. I was great at this job. I was making a ton of money. I made Hilton like $15 million, and like I made them that much money in about 8 months.
Jeez.
And my parents, dude, I mean, I was at the lead in plays. I was doing films and shooting commercials, and I mean, I just started doing films, but I was in commercials. I was doing plays, and I got standing ovations. My parents had never looked at me with the pride in their eyes that they looked at me when I was making all that money for Hilton. They were just tickled. I mean, it was amazing for me to see that this is what it took, you know. And then eventually I quit. I just left. I could not. I had lost 15 pounds. I was miserable. I was drinking. I fucking hated that job, even though I was making, you know, an obscene amount of money. I hated it. And people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, man, I'm not going to prostitute my acting skills for money and make, you know, and live miserably. I'm here, you know, to explore this craft, acting. And so I know exactly how that goes, you know.
But that's beautiful. You found that strength because, God, how easy it would have been. I mean, I bet you're getting all the pats on the back, like you just said, from your parents, you know, and it's like, I'm sure there was a lot of perks to that life.
Oh, yeah.
And society was celebrating you. It's the easy choice, really, for you would be to have carried that on in many ways, sold your soul, right?
Yeah, it's true. Thank you. It's true. My parents would have been thrilled.
Yeah, totally. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're working with people on the regular, my friend. And I love that you have alchemized your experience and then did the what I think starts to come naturally to people, you know, once you fill your cup up and it starts to spill over, you're inclined to share and help people because you see this, you can see this happening with other people, you know, and I feel that as well, you know. So, but like, so how did you end up at Russell's? Had you met Russell before? Did he reach out to you? Because I mean, that in and of itself is such an honor, and you were fantastic there.
Oh, thank you, brother. Yeah, no, you know, it's interesting how I ended up there actually, because it was born out of frustration. And you know, I feel, well, you've experienced it. I have a real passion for my work, and I feel like I want to share it, and I feel like it's well received when I get it out there. And I was like having a rant to my friend. I was like, God, like I'm seeing these people do these things, and I'm not getting this opportunity. I want to be here and I want to be there. And it's like, I should be at Russell Brand's festival. And she was like, well, you know, like my friend is tied into this and this and this. Like, I'll just drop you an email to see if we can get you a hookup there. And she introed, and it was a bit of a like random kind of dot, but we got there. And then one of Russell's guys came back and said, we're really looking to do some stuff around masculinity. And I was like,
ask and you shall receive, brother.
You know,
see what I'm saying?
That is it, right? It teaches me. It's like, we got to show up. We got to show up. And of course, I've sent loads of other emails, messages to people, and it's never happened.
Yeah. But this one was aligned, and it was. I mean, it was a perfect, wonderful addition to the. It was one of the highlights for me. I mean, but I go in for this kind of work. I know how important it is, and the fact that I have a lot of experience with it speaks to how good you are at it. Because I was right with you the whole time. You know, it was not like in any way, shape, or form a rehashing of you know, you really kept everyone present, and you made it, all the work was very much yours, and guided by, you know, the way I think only you could. So that speaks to that you're doing exactly what I believe you're meant to be doing right now. So
I really
It's
appreciate
awesome.
that, brother. You know, I feel that too, but it's always beautiful to receive it from others. So thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you.
You know, so you just got back from another festival. So do you work? Do you
Yeah.
often work with workshops, festivals? Do you have corporate clients? You know what? I would love to know what happens when you get your hands on some, a corporate environment, and how those two things work each other out.
You know, I've been piecing this together for a while because I do my corporate work tends to be more public speaking and speaking about masculinity and mental health and that kind of stuff, very much like we have been. But I really want to bring breathwork into the corporate, and
Oh my God.
I called our work heart opening breath work because the intention is to bring like more love into the body and more open up your hearts, right? And I hope that was kind of perhaps how you experienced it in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's not going to get me very far in a corporate environment, but I reckon I can rescale this and like a team building heart work. And bringing people up, and I know, I'm opening up their hearts. They haven't got a clue that's what I'm doing. They think it's team building, and then incorporating, of course, the team building element to make it, to bring them close together, to operating them from less of a place of judgment and competition within them, but looking at their collective and like, how can we better serve one another and be a better team as one another from this open place that I'll take them to. So I do feel like there's opportunity within that, and taking that into like sports teams, and because the work we did was very individual in terms of opening us up individually to what it is that we need. But I believe from that place we become a better team. We connect more with one another. I don't know if you felt that in the room, but that sense of connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're literally opening your heart. So it's not. Yes, it's a metaphor, but it's a physical experience as well. I mean, everything opens, and that's a measurable thing. So the heart is taking in more oxygen. There's a lot of oxytocin being released. So you're absolutely right, and as well as I do, it would be a team building, because the body would be creating all the biochemistry it needs to form lasting bonds. Which is why I'll never forget the two people I spoke to who were, kind of shaking me and asking me if I was all right. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. I was just, coming back into myself when you were finishing, but I think they were like, looking at me and they were worried, but I thought it was so kind of them to show their concern, but I'm sure I was in a state of very much gratitude and appreciation. And I'll never forget those people, even though I met them for literally 5 minutes, and that's because that's how this works. So I think you're onto something, and I think it's a brilliant idea to scale it that way. I mean, look, Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of my teachers, who I learned meditation from, and I've spent like 6-7 weeks on retreat with him. He attracts people through his understanding of neuroscience. That's, people don't sign up for the spirituality. He doesn't come at them with the woo. He comes at them with the science, and he's got the intelligence and know-how to easily pull it off. And then once they're in, then he shows them the truth of it all, which is in the science anyway. So it's like it's brilliant. I think that you should definitely pursue.
I always come back to this phrase. I'm hearing you say it now, and it's, and it sounds like you're tricking people, but it's tell them what they want to hear and then give them what they need. And it's and that sounds like it's tricky, but it's just like, I couldn't see what it was I needed in my 20s, and the coach, thank God I worked with him, a therapist, she could. And so, she allowed me to believe I was going to become the sex guru, because that was my route in. She knew that if she told me like really what I needed, I would have run, because that's my conditioning was in that place. That's why I was stuck. So many of us can't see what it is that we need. I really believe when we learn to open up our hearts, we just see the truth. Like going back to the start of our conversation, it's just, for me, opening up our heart is reconnecting to the truth. And all the time we're not connected to the truth, we're in pain, and we'll express that in some form, whether it's addiction or, competition or whatever it is, the armor, the alpha, or the shying away, the hiding, whatever it is. Like, it comes up for people in different ways. But ultimately, we need to all come back to the truth of who we are. Like, I had to accept. I was a kind and sensitive man, rather than wanting this portrayal of, trying to be the James Bond Terminator Rambo that was a tough guy. That I never was. Obviously, I was doing a terrible job, but because people could feel that it wasn't authentic for me underneath it all. But that's what I'm doing. And if, through this work, opening up a heart, it's an individual journey. Everyone will reach their own place, but it's a place of truth that's right for them. And that's what we all need. That's what the world needs.
And there's a knowledge and intelligence that comes with that heart opening that you cannot begin to scratch the surface of and access, particularly as a man, if you have not found a way to open your heart. And I know women who, surprisingly, there are women too who have blockages in this energy center, chakra, whatever you want to call it, and I believe that's because they've been hurt and damaged just enough to, I don't want to use the word damaged, but conditioned enough to have this kind of blocked off for safety. It's a coping mechanism. So I'm Ben, can you give, and I probably have a skewed male audience most of the time listening to me, which is perfect for this podcast. But, for guys out there who maybe are listening to this, have come this far with us and feel like they would like to go further with this, but do run into okay, but I'm, how do I do that? How do I, I know it's not an easy question to answer simply, but how can they begin to practice opening their heart, and how do they know if it's working, if they're making progress?
Yeah, totally. I mean, let's start from the end there. I think they'd know if they're making progress if they feel connected and aligned to what is their deepest truth. And that might be quite hard to understand what their deepest truth is. So if I go through the stages, for me, that hopefully that will give them some perspective. Like at the very earliest place for us to start this, I say to people, when someone trusted, someone close to you, asks you how you're doing, and give them the truth. Let's not just say, I'm okay, how are you doing? Or whatever it is, however you respond, that the world teaches us to. Let's actually stop, pause, take a moment. And the answer might be, I don't fucking know how I feel. I don't feel nothing. I feel like whatever, fine. That was the way I but just to acknowledge that, even just to try and from that place, either can you fit into anything? Is there anything? Is there the slightest bit of anger? Is the slightest bit of frustration or emptiness or happiness, ecstasy, whatever, anything, whatever your range of, can we just feel into that and give this stuff now, Joe Dispenza, now we're talking neuroplasticity, and just in terms of just exercising that muscle of trying to feel into what it is that's in the body. Because most of us just do not even use that exercise, that muscle, and wonder why we can't, when it comes to, we're just completely, we've never used it. So just at that very, very starting place, feel into that. Now, I'm not talking about when you get on the bus and the bus driver goes, how you doing? And you go, oh, hang on a minute. Let me just,
Yeah. He's trying to shut the door on you.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Exactly. But the trusted people, and there might only be 1, 2, 3 of them in your world, but to connect in that place, that for me is a starting place. And giving the safety, and for the person receiving it, just to listen, to sit there and receive, hear them. Not try and tell them how to change it, but just be accepting of whatever it is that is within them. To accept that's part of them. And then, if we want to start getting deeper into that from that place, we're because listen, Faust, if you feel shit and you say to someone, I feel great, it doesn't actually feel good you're not aligned, you're not living your truth, to use these phrases. What feels nice is just to be able to express, the lightness that comes from just being able to say, this is what I'm feeling. We often say it, and it's almost we almost take a breath, and it's oh, thank God, I'm able to actually express that. I feel more free already because we're now living aligned, harmonious. We're as one now. So then from that place, for me, it then comes to a place of vulnerability, in terms of just sinking into that word. Now it's okay, well, what if we can be willing to embrace that in all aspects of our life? to actually live our truth, because that for me is what vulnerability is. So many of us hide our truth because we're scared of the judgment. What if we took the judgment out and we just expressed like really what was within us? And the way that I always look to that place is, most of us would think, okay, well, I'm going to express like what's true in me. You're a fucking dick. You're stupid. I hate what you're about. You're an asshole. All this, it's like, well, that's my truth if you want it. And it's like, you can even hear it in the language where people would say like, I think, or it's like very much a projection of what is going on in their judgments in their head. All those things are all judgments, right? They're just how we're perceiving someone. That's not our truth. That's what we've conditioned ourselves to perceive people in that way. So the truth lives deeper than that. So going beyond our head, now we're getting to the place of listening beneath our thoughts. And for me, that's more of a knowing. It's more just like, I can't explain this, but you're a really beautiful person. Or I just know that that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go. I can't explain it. It might not make sense to you, but it's true for me. And going into that place. And then like ultimately, what I guess where I'm getting to is, you had the experience with breathwork. And for me, that is just a beautiful tool that physically takes you into that space. If you can't rationalize that experience necessarily. And you can't also, if you stay with me, you also won't avoid it. The body will the prefrontal cortex will quieten and your judgments will naturally quieten and you will become more connected to this deeper truth in your body in that place. So if you want a kind of cheat code, you can use the breath and then from that place sit with what's inside of you. Because it's there, it's much louder now, it's much clearer. If you can't hear it before, you'll hear it when you breathe. I guess the next steps you talk about psychedelics and ayahuasca and breathwork perhaps is a stepping stone towards all that stuff. But there's a little journey starting with how are you and maybe ending up in something like an ayahuasca journey or something like that.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
you start off on this journey and one thing leads to another and some people might, and this was my experience as well, you feel called to attend a plant ceremony. And I did that in service of myself. I felt like that was, and I know that it was the right thing for me. I was guided to this ceremony, by so many different signs, and in my pursuit of how do I continue to crack this open, it was like, it was literally. Did you ever see the movie Memento?
I haven't, no.
Brilliant movie. I don't watch a lot of movies anymore, but this dude I think it's my, I don't know if you can hear my dogs barking, but if you can, I apologize.
I can, but don't worry. Mine will start in a minute too.
But this dude, he has something wrong with his brain, and he can only remember 15 minutes worth of his life. So he has to leave himself all kinds of clues that he's accumulated to figure out where the fuck he is every 15 minutes. And the dude's got, it's a brilliant movie. He's got tattoos all over the place. Like he's like, all of a sudden he's like, where am I? What am I doing? And then he sees his hand and it says, you're his name. Oh, I'm, and you hear his inner monologue. I just felt like my journey to a plant ceremony was almost like memento. Like I had left all these clues for myself in one way or another, with other people, with myself, and that led me right there, to where I needed to be. And it was truly, another part of my heart opening, ceremony, for lack of a better word. It was beautiful. So it's amazing you mentioned that, because the medicine has a lot, can contribute a lot to your journey, especially when you get there with intention.
Yeah, beautiful. It's not something I haven't done. Ayahuasca is very much on my to-do list. Right time, right place. It's not so accessible here in the UK. And if I were to do it, I want to be in the South American jungle or somewhere and get lost. And
I thought the same thing, and I was ready to fly there, but there's well, I'll tell you more about it after the podcast. But there's an alternative that you wouldn't have to go so far south if you didn't want to. And it's absolutely, it's a sacred space. This temple is gorgeous. And it's it's in the East Coast in America, but it's a transplant from Peru, and the shamans are just incredible. It's really a dream that it is where it is. So if you're ever, maybe you find yourself in the States, on the East Coast, you let me know.
Beautiful.
Because I got you. I'll get you. I'll give you the down low on it.
Well, thank you, brother. Well, I'll be in touch anyway, either way. But
Awesome.
beautiful. Yeah. It's anything that expands my heart, that connects me more to my truth, is a valid purpose, is a valid journey. I say this Faust as well, in the same way that the breath work for me is a sacred space that has to be trusted, because I see that same experience unfold for some people, and obviously to different degrees. For some people, it might be in a very soft journey, and but for others, they go deep into their psyche, and so much comes up that is truth. We're not creating anything fictional in that experience. We're just returning people to a place where they can connect with what is there already in a different way, and from that place, we get the opportunity to heal, to sit with, and that is a removal of the armor.
It is. Look, meditation can be challenging for people who are trying to find a practice. And I'm always encouraging people to meditate, because I just feel like it's invaluable. I have a daily practice, so I'm a big advocate of it, because I know it worked for me. But as I learned to meditate, and especially any student of Dr. Joe Dispenza's will tell you, you're learning breath work with meditation. Right, you're dropping into your meditation after breath work, which is one of the most glorious and remarkable experiences you can have. Breath work primes you to drop in, and then you're liberating all this energy, all memories. Sometimes people even have glimpses and visions of past lives. There's a lot of mystical experiences that can come with this work if you're consistent with it. Some people, they just jump right into it, and the most incredible things happen for them. But breath work is a physical act that anyone can do, that has profound healing benefits. So for people who are feeling stuck or have chronic conditions, my question is, have you truly explored some of these avenues? Because you unveil so many different solutions: physical, mental, emotional, and that's, I believe that's one of the things that Ben does so well. And Ben, talk a little bit about, the kind of breath work that you do, and, compared to, like, we were with Wim Hof when we were in the festival, and Wim obviously has his own style, which is, and he has brought this breath. I mean, these practices are ancient, my friends. We're just kind of modern day messengers of them, Wim included. But talk a little bit about the techniques you use, and where they came from, and, like, in comparison to, let's say, a Wim Hof and the kind that he does.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the way I see breathwork is almost as, it's got two parts, or two very different aspects to it. And one is, like, the breath is very functional, right? It's a state changer. If we feel anxious, our breath becomes anxious. But it's also vice versa. If we then learn to bring a calming breath, then our anxiety can calm from that place too, for example. But there's also, and I don't do so much of that. It's something that I'm learning more and more about, and it's a really valuable, powerful tool in this world that is learning more and more that we need to get into our bodies. We can't just work shit out in our head. It's more, it's deeper than that. What I do is to use the breath to bring in more oxygen into the body. We decrease the CO2 level. We do that by taking 2 inhales and an exhale, all through our mouth being the bigger vehicle to bring in more oxygen. And then from that place, that creates physiological change in the body. So actually what happens is we're decreasing the oxygen in our bloodstream. Even though we're bringing more oxygen in, because we're decreasing the CO2, it ends up with less oxygen in the bloodstream. From that place, less oxygen reaches the brain, along with many other of our organs, but the vital organs are now deprived of oxygen, which can sound kind of scary. However, it's temporary, and we're doing it in a controlled way. And as we decrease oxygen into the brain, the prefrontal cortex starts to quieten, because the brain is like, I don't have all of my resources here. We need to start working in a more condensed way. So parts of it become to quieten. Prefrontal cortex is the place that we judge. It's very rational. It's the place we plan. It's the place where a lot of us spend a lot of our days. And God, there's a quote by Einstein that says, we can't, I'm going to butcher it, but we can't, in fact, I'm going to completely butcher it, but I'll put my own spin on it.
Change change the problems with the same consciousness that created them.
Exactly.
I probably butchered it a little too, but I think that's where you're going.
That was where I was going. Exactly. Thank you for saving me. So we can't think change. Ultimately, we can't. If we thought the problem and we're thinking about it, we can't just think about it and it will change. We have to come from a different place, and the breath takes us into the body. So as the prefrontal cortex quietens, we start to experience what I refer to as the right side of the brain. It's more creative. It's there's more clarity, because there's less questioning. There's less trying to rationalize, trying to work anything out. It's just what I referred to before, is this knowing. And we start to hear that in a way that we don't normally hear it, because we're never quietening ourselves to that degree. So now we have this connection with just what is true. And so with the guidance that I take people on, it's really trying to utilize that from this open state, from this place of lack of judgment. If we poke around there, what can we find? What can we uncover? What can we bring in? What can we show to the people around them that is true for them? For the people in the experience is true for them. And so really the breath is just a tool. The breath is just giving us the physiological change to quieten the parts of us that we want to quieten, open ourselves up. And it's like, now this is going to sound, it's the wrong word, but we're impressionable, if you like. We're open to be led into somewhere. So that's where it's the role of the breathwork practitioner. For me, where can I guide you? Mm-hmm. And what we did at Russell Brand's is I call it heart opening breathwork. So I wanted to bring love into the body, and I believe that we are all love. I know, again, it's a cliche, but when we quieten that voice, we will all experience what love is in some capacity, in our own way. But for me, it will revolve around kindness, compassion, presence, curiosity, not a judgment, not a making things good or bad, but just an openness to experience this world. And so taking them into that place and just leading them to feel what that means for them, to let go, to surrender into all of the problems that we create, all of the judgments that we're making, to surrender beneath that and just to feel what actually is true now, true in our body. What are we holding? And that's the journey. And it's the most beautiful state for us to live in. So it's just an honor for me to guide people into that place. For some people, it makes them laugh. For some people, it makes them cry. Some people, it's just a blissful, still state. Each to their own, but just allow the space for people to reach wherever it is they're meant to go.
And the more times you do it, the more you'll experience all those states. Yeah. I've been in a room. There they go again. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I've been in a room with 1,600 people doing this kind of work, and I'm sure Ben, you had some experience with this too. If just a few of them start to laugh, then it's like a fire. It catches, and the whole room starts to roll with it. And you can try and hold out. It's funny, you're doing heart opening breath work and you're like, no, I'm not going to laugh. And then and then somebody roars with laughter and you're like, just fight. You're just cracking up too. Everyone just enjoying life, laughing.
It's amazing.
A beautiful thing.
It happened in my last session, and
I saw that on Instagram. Yeah,
it was kind of a battle for me, because I'm like, hang on, everyone, we're meant to be doing this now, and now you're all doing this. That's not the place where I'm thinking. So I had to really just surrender and become present to what was there for them, and the room went, and it was it was hysterical because it was not, there are levels like you're laughing uncontrollably, but somehow you find like another, it's like another level of like, and they just kept finding new levels of like,
Yes.
and we all just went, and it was beautiful. And then, we came back, it was just before we started some integration work, and there was just then this real stillness. It was almost just a release. We can laugh, like it's within us. And then, okay, what now? And yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And you just when you think it's done, there's that one, and it's almost so you can almost hear the trigger. Yeah. There's someone just laughs even harder than anyone has laughed yet, and that sets the whole thing in motion again. It's amazing when you're listening to it.
Yeah.
But
one of those beautiful things in life, isn't it? When you lose yourself like that.
It's great. And it's there's the healing power of laughter should never be underestimated. There's a reason that phrase is in existence, that you can laugh yourself into a healthy state. It is very healthy for you to laugh. The body does all kinds of amazing things when you laugh. So I love that. I think it's great.
I also think I'm with you. And I also think like having gone, because for us, it happened at a point where we'd gone deep and there was a lot of emotion in the room. There was a lot of noise and it was like, this is a lot, And then it came to a point where the laughter came kind of as we sort of softened to that place. And it was almost like this liberation of like, okay, we've done all this. Now it's like I can just let go. And it's almost if we can laugh in our pain without disrespecting it, without, flippantly kind of avoiding it, but just to acknowledge that we're still here. Life is still going on. I'm still happening. And actually, who knows what can happen from here, and all that seriousness that I held on to and made that be me. I don't have to have that attachment. I can see it now, and I'm more free. I'm lighter, and just to laugh into that space. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I want to try and in the future create a space where we can almost bring that laughter on cue. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be possible. Maybe we need to bring Russell in to tell a few jokes or something.
You might. Yeah, that's I've seen it happen naturally, and it just kind of organically happens. Yeah. And it's funny because some people, in the room are, immediately their heels are dug in and they're like, wait a minute, because they're having a different experience, but then the collective kind of, so it's always an interesting dichotomy between the people who, and it's when you're guiding, it's even more of a challenge, I imagine, because you're like, okay, for the people who were not having this experience, but you got to trust kind of the way things, organically play out. So, but
let's bring that into the corporate world as well.
My
Some
God,
good old laughter.
We need that so much.
Yeah. I'm going to do it fast.
You can do it. You're the man to do it, man. Because you know what? You still look like, you're tall, you're handsome. You have all that masculinity going. So when you approach them, shit, all you need is a shirt and tie, and they're going to listen to you.
You're too kind.
They need it, man. The corporate world needs it. It's part of the reason why we're in the mess we're in, I think. With all this corporate,
we all need it. I need it too.
No,
I'm still open to all of that very much.
Me too. And I think the work is never done. If you're walking around planet Earth and you're a human being, then you have to keep one eye on the prize, which is, a greater expression of joy, of self, of life. And that is, I think that is what we're here to discover, and express. And that's why the Creator gave us this spark. And if you're not, what are you doing? I mean, what could be more important? I understand we all have responsibilities, but I always feel like, sometimes people just need a reminder to do what's important that they've maybe forgotten about. So I always like to give it in my podcasts when I remember.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm with you. With you.
But Ben, let's go far out a little bit for my some of my listeners with my kind of curiosity. So listen, I know, when you take this spiritual journey, I think inevitably, not always, but a lot of times, because when you start to quiet everything and your senses start to open, first, you have to clear down, we connect to the earth, but then we start to go up and out, right? And I think inevitably that leads you to, a greater consciousness of what's beyond this planet. And, I'm a big advocate of disclosure, and I have a lot of, quote, conspiracy. Well, they're definitely conspiracies, but people like to call them theories, although the truth seems to be dripping out as far as the UFO phenomenon and what's been covered up. I'm wondering if you've had any experiences, dreams, have you been abducted yet? Or have you had any kind of experiences of that nature?
God, I'm like, come get me. I would love. Maybe I'm. I wish. I don't know what I'm inviting myself in for, but no. Do you know what? It's one of my things, and there's almost an element of jealousy for me sometimes in the breath work when I see how embodied some people are, and I see people channeling things and they're calling things in, and I'm like amazed that people reach this space, and I haven't, and through the work that I'm offering, and I have never experienced that. And I want to, Faust, and I want to be able to sit here with you and say, yeah, like I'm so open. These are some of the things that I've invited into my life. But whether this is a sign for me that I am, still more work to do, or whether my time is coming and it's all unfolding exactly how it is, I don't know. But I've never had any experiences, or I can't give you any information of anything. I've never heard any other voices. I've never connected. I've never seen a ghost. I've never connected with UFOs. If I'm honest, I don't know. I haven't heard you say this. I don't know, but I imagine you probably have. But I imagine there's probably aliens within us already.
Yeah.
Walking our world.
We're a product of. I mean, I think we're a product of these higher civilizations. And also, I'm a big believer that absolutely there are human quote ETs walking among us. The archetype that we are is, I mean, this is obviously yet to become common knowledge, but I absolutely believe it to be true. This human archetype, the DNA that we've been given, it's a successful endeavor. So, I'm sure it's been repeated, and we didn't come from people. I mean, we didn't come from chimpanzees. That whole notion is ridiculous. You don't evolve. If you've evolved from something, then it's no longer here. I mean, so the notion that we evolved from chimps and primates it just makes no sense. But anyway, that's beautiful. Totally cool, man. Listen, you've put it out there now, and you've spoken it. And when a person who is aligned with their purpose and their heart speaks something, it immediately comes into existence in one way, shape, or form. So I trust that the things that you're looking for, are also looking for you. And so don't be attached to any outcomes, and don't try to figure out how these things might show up in your life. And then they're going to start to show up just like that. And I can tell, we can talk a little more about it, in off camera. I would love to point you in a few directions to jumpstart this, because I've had some remarkable experiences, and I was seeking them out and learning more about them. And then, in the plant ceremony I was in, I had this remarkable interaction. But I had set the date. I kind of I had set it up. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I knew I was going to be in a state where I can receive and communicate in a way that maybe I couldn't in my normal waking hours. And so I kind of arranged it, and then I forgot about it, and then it happened, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I did this. I did this. I told you where I was going to be and when. So, it's like you can play with it. You can have a lot of fun, but
do you speak about that generally?
I've spoken about it before, on my podcast.
Yeah.
It was it's crazy because you when you set these intentions and then you can truly release them and not be attached to them showing up. Then when they do show up and they're a surprise, you're like, it's remarkable. And then you're like, is this real? Especially if you're in a plant ceremony. And so, you're like, so you have to begin a dialogue. And of course, like people are like, well, it was in your head. Yeah, everything is in your head. I got a news flash for you. Okay. This experience you're having right now, listening to this, is in your head. Yeah. So that whole thing. But when you tune in, then you got to trust what you have, what is coming through, right? The big thing that people run into is they just dismiss everything that's, they'll ask God a question, and then God gives them an answer, and they're like, that was just me. Yeah. Well, how else is God going to talk to you except through you? You know, I mean, right. Would you like to hear the voice of God? I mean, what do you want? People, they do that so often. They just discount what, they ask for a sign, they get the sign, then they think they're crazy. And it's like, so it's the same part, Ben, of you where, it comes before thought. Thought doesn't need to interfere with it. It's just there, right? That's been my experience with some of these things. But I'll talk to you a little more about it, kind of off camera. I would love to kind of point you in the right direction, because I mean, dude, you could use your knowledge of breath work and meditation to literally call. I mean, if you went out, especially if you were with like 2 or 3 friends, you don't need other people, but it's called they call it a CE5 meditation, and anyone can do it. And you can go out and stargaze, especially if you do it with people who know how to achieve heart coherence. And then what you do is you can connect consciously to, our celestial family and brothers and sisters who are, obviously they have to be careful if they're flying around Earth, because we're hostile towards, I mean, this is terrible and atrocious to even speak aloud and admit, but they can't just, I mean, there would be a lot more of them if it was safe for them, but it's not, we have a very hostile environment, but if it's safe for them, and, when you're communicating with them and you're showing them where you are on the planet, and you're using this incredible heart coherence that you've achieved through meditation, you can say to them, if it's safe for you, if you could show yourself, and you would be dazzled, you'd be shocked at what shows up, I mean, and I've had ships, ships parked, ships there, ships flying around, blue, red, and then you begin to connect, and then from there that experience can evolve, and anyone can do this. You have to realize that fear is not gonna, they can sense that when they're connecting to the consciousness of the beings. So if you're afraid, they're not gonna show up to scare the ever-loving bejesus out of you. They're not gonna do that. But if your heart is open and you're willing to connect and it's safe, they will come and say hi. I promise. I've experienced it myself more than one occasion. So I can tell. I want to tell you all about that.
This is one of the most exciting conversations I could ever have. I mean, the possibility. We talked about possibility before, and it's like we don't even know of the possibilities.
Yeah. And through that, people have had some remarkable interactions, from there, because sometimes they can really connect, and then they're shown, and they're invited in to see more and communicate, and sometimes there's even like repeat entities, I don't know what you would call them, ETs, or the same being comes back again, and speaks again to the same people, which is, it just happens too often to be dismissed. I mean, these people are like regular Joes, and I know some of them. They're not writing books and trying to sell anything. They're just communicating. They're doing what the government would rather no one find out and do.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. So Well, I mean, yeah, I'm so open to this. We'll have to have that conversation if you're happy to. But do you mind, with this in mind, and given your ability to sit in that space and open yourselves up to these interactions, do you mind if I ask you what came up for you when we breathed together?
Let me see if I can remember. When we were,
to give you like a bit of a prompt, maybe, or I opened us up. I played a poem, this concept about what is love, and opened us up, and then we breathed, and it was all about bringing that love back into the body, bringing light back into the body, and then at the end we came together, and just we sang a song together. It was all about releasing control, and just softening into that space. So I don't remember if you had anything.
I think I became aware of my older brother passed away in January of this year, and it had been running around a lot, traveling a lot to get from here to England, and meeting a lot of people, and I hadn't had much of a moment to stop and kind of touch in with myself, and if I recall, I got a sense of my brother, and I became kind of aware of his presence and his love, and one of the last things that we did the last time I was with him physically, he gave me a big hug, and it was so filled with love, and I think in that moment, I felt that hug, and I felt his presence, and then I was just filled with love, and it was a profound experience for me. I think that, and that's why I was, kind of still on the floor when everyone was making their way out and people were checking in on me. I was just kind of hanging out there. I think that's what memory served me. Yeah.
Really beautiful, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
God, isn't it just beautiful in this world? Like, I'm so sorry for your loss, but
thank you.
To be able to have the strength, resilience within ourselves, to be able to take us back to those moments and experience those times when I'm sure that hurt, right? I'm sure that caused a lot of pain in some ways. Perhaps it's easier never to take yourself back to those places, but so much beauty in it too.
So much beauty, and man, it's I just remember, you see when you see a baby can go from laughing to crying like this.
Yes.
Like it's a seamless transition.
Yes.
And there's something so beautiful about how they can move so fluidly through their emotions. And so I it was very difficult at first to think of that moment. But as I just got more, it was my last moment with my brother, and it was so powerful to me. And it would, it's amazing because it's like the yin and the yang, it hurts, but it feels so good. And inevitably I end up, it allows me to express my grief in a healthy way, and, touch in with my brother and feel his presence in this physical life, even though he's not here, and know that he's still with me in my heart and that he's watching me. And it's, for me, it's all worth it. So I have come to a place where I love that moment. I revisit it now. And even sometimes it makes me sad, but I know that if that sadness is there, then I need to let those tears out. Because I'm going to be better after, I'm going to not only feel better, but be in a healthier state, having expressed some of that grief that's still there. So yeah, man, it is a gift to be in your workshop and to meet you and to have you on my show. This has been remarkable. I so appreciate your time, Ben. And thank you so much.
It's been my honor, and it's beautiful to sit and connect. And I'm always just so grateful to sit in the space with men who are on this journey, and to drop off our masks, have a conversation, to feel one another, and just to share from a place of truth, and to allow whatever comes up. And it's beautiful. So I'm grateful to have the space with you, and grateful to have this conversation. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely, brother. Listen, we're going to do it again one day, and we're going to talk about all the crazy experiences you've had since this time, from this time to that one. It's going to be great.
Yes.
It'd be awesome, Ben. But so I'll be in touch, Ben.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Okay, brother. You take care. Great to see you, man.
Thank you, dude. See you. Bye-bye. Bye.